Hi, and welcome to the channel. Settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind drift away. Tonight, we journey back to a time of ancient forests and forgotten magic, where the lines between the natural world and the human heart are blurred. In this story, we follow Ilara, a quiet woman with a special connection to the Whispering Woods, as she embarks on a journey of letting go and finding a deeper peace. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's begin. The Whispering Woods and the Lost Stone. The sun had long since dipped below the horizon, painting the western sky in hues of soft lavender and rose before finally surrendering to the deep indigo of night. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves of the ancient trees that bordered the village of Oakhaven, their whispers like secrets carried on the air. In the heart of the village nestled a small cottage, its windows glowing with the warm light of a flickering fire. Inside, Ilara sat by the hearth, a worn wooden box resting on her lap. Ilara was known throughout Oakhaven for her quiet nature and her deep connection to the whispering woods that surrounded their home. She spent many hours wandering its moss-covered paths, listening to the rustling leaves and the gentle murmur of the hidden stream. She knew every curve in the ancient oak trunks, every patch of thick, velvety moss, and every hidden clearing where wild mushrooms grew in tight circles. Her days were a slow, peaceful rhythm of gathering wild herbs, listening to the songs of the birds, and feeling the cool earth beneath her feet. The woods were not just a place for her, they were a part of her, a living, breathing presence that offered comfort and a deep sense of belonging. It was during one of these walks, many years ago when she was just a child, that she had found the stone. It wasn't a large stone, no bigger than the palm of her hand, but it was smooth and cool to the touch, with a faint shimmer that seemed to catch the moonlight even in the deepest shade. From the moment she picked it up, Ilara felt a sense of peace settle over her, a quiet understanding of the world around her. She kept the stone tucked away in the wooden box, taking it out whenever she needed solace or a moment of calm. The stone was her secret, her connection to a deeper magic she sensed in the world. Tonight, however, the usual peace eluded her. A restlessness had settled in her heart, a gentle unease that she couldn't quite place. For weeks, a subtle change had been creeping over the land. The streams seemed to flow with less vigor, their gentle murmur becoming a tired sigh. The leaves on the trees, while still green, held a faint, dusty grayness that had not been there before. Even the air, which had always carried the sweet scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers, now seemed thin and hollow. She opened the wooden box and took up the smooth stone, its faint shimmer doing little to soothe her troubled thoughts. She ran her thumb across its surface, feeling the familiar cool smoothness. The stone felt a little less vibrant than usual, as if it, too, felt the creeping sadness of the land. She closed her eyes and held the stone tightly. She remembered the day she found it, a day filled with the deepest fear she had ever known. She had been lost in the woods, a small child overwhelmed by the towering trees and tangled undergrowth. She had run from a sudden, frightening thunderstorm, and the familiar paths had twisted and disappeared beneath her frantic feet. Tears had welled in her eyes as the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to reach out and grab her. The forest, her friend, now felt like a dark, living thing that wanted to keep her forever. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, she had stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in an unusual soft light. It wasn't the light of the setting sun or the rising moon. It was a pearly, gentle luminescence that seemed to come from the very air itself. In the center of the clearing, nestled in a bed of glowing moss, lay the stone. As she picked it up, a feeling of warmth had spread through her, and a calm assurance had settled in her mind. A clear path had seemed to appear before her, not with a sudden flash, but with a quiet, undeniable clarity, leading her back home. She had never told anyone about the clearing or the strange light. It felt like a secret meant only for her. A secret that had been given to her by the art of the forest itself. But now, as she held the stone, she wondered if it held a deeper meaning, a purpose beyond bringing her personal peace. Perhaps the whispers of the woods were not just secrets, but pleas. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, its gentle rhythm a familiar comfort. Ilara opened her eyes and gazed into the flames, watching the dance of light and shadow. The whispering of the woods outside seemed to grow a little louder, a low, sighing sound that carried a gentle urgency. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed at the cottage door. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. Visitors were rare at this late hour. She placed the stone back in its box and went to the door, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for the latch. She pulled the door open to find a traveler standing on her doorstep. He was a tall man, cloaked and hooded, his face obscured by the shadows of the night. He held a simple wooden staff and seemed weary from a long journey. "Forgive my intrusion, good mistress," the traveler said, his voice low and gentle, "but I have heard tales of a stone, a smooth stone that whispers of peace. I seek such a stone, and the whispers on the wind have led me to your door." Ilara was taken aback. How could this stranger know about her stone? Had she spoken of it in her sleep? Or had the whispering woods carried her secret further than she knew? She saw no threat in his posture, only a deep, abiding tiredness. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped back, inviting the traveler inside. The warm glow of the firelight illuminated his face, revealing kind eyes and a gentle smile. He seemed more weary traveler than a threat. Ilara led him to the hearth, and he sat down on the stool she offered. The silence in the cottage was thick with unspoken questions. He warmed his hands by the fire, his gaze thoughtful. "My name is Bram," he said, breaking the silence, "and I travel the land seeking ancient artifacts, objects of power and peace that have been lost to time. The stone you possess, the Whispering Stone, is one such artifact. It is said to hold a fragment of the old magic, a connection to the very heart of the forest. The legends say it was born from a tear of the first spirit of the woods, a tear of sorrow that fell when the first tree was felled by human hand. Its purpose is to mend, to heal, and to restore balance to the natural world." Ilara listened intently, her unease slowly giving way to a sense of wonder. She had always felt the stone was special, but she had never imagined it held such significance. It made sense now, the deep peace she felt when she held it, the quiet way it seemed to guide her. It was not her private secret, but a sacred trust. Pram explained that he had followed rumors and legends, the whispers on the wind guiding his search. He spoke of the creeping sickness he had seen in the land, the rivers that ran sluggishly, the crops that failed to flourish. "It is a sickness of the heart of the world," he said, his voice a low, sad murmur. "The old magic is fading. The land is losing its song." He spoke of a sacred spring far to the north, a place where the old magic was still strong but was slowly being poisoned by the encroaching darkness. "The Whispering Stone must be returned to the sacred spring," Bram explained. "Its energy, its song of peace, must be woven back into the heart of the earth to push back the encroaching shadow. If it is not done, the silence will become absolute, and the land will wither and die. Ilara looked at the wooden box on her lap. The stone within seemed to pulse with a faint warmth. She thought back to all the times it had brought her comfort, the nights she had held it when she was sick with fever, the times she had clutched it in her hand as she walked through the woods at dusk. It was a part of her, a source of unwavering strength. Could she part with it, even for such a noble purpose? The thought of her peaceful woods becoming withered and silent was a pain she couldn't bear. Pram seemed to sense her hesitation. "The stone has served you well, Ilara," he said softly. "It chose you for a reason. But its true purpose is to bring peace not just to one heart, but to the land. You were its guardian, its protector until the time was right to send it back on its journey." Ilara looked into Pram's earnest eyes. She could see the weight of his quest, the sincerity of his words. She thought of the gentle rustling of the leaves in her woods, the quiet murmur of the stream, the peace she had always found there. If the stone could bring that peace to the entire kingdom, if it could save the land she loved so much, could she deny it? The warmth from the stone seemed to grow, and for a moment, she felt a profound sense of connection to the entire forest, as if every tree and every creature were watching her, waiting. With a deep breath, Ilara opened the wooden box and offered the smooth, shimmering stone to Pram. He took it gently, his eyes filled with gratitude. As his fingers closed around it, the stone seemed to glow brighter, and a wave of warmth filled the cottage, washing away Ilara's lingering unease. The whispering of the woods outside seemed to soften, becoming a gentle lullaby. Pram thanked Ilara for her selfless act, explaining that he would continue his journey at first light, carrying the whispering stone to where its power was most needed. He promised that the peace it brought would eventually return to Oakhaven, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. He told her she had been an ideal keeper of the stone, her own quiet, peaceful spirit a perfect match for its gentle magic. As Pram departed into the night, the faint shimmer of the stone could be seen for a moment through the trees. Ilara stood in her doorway, watching until the last trace of light disappeared. A profound sense of calm settled over her. She had given away her most treasured possession, but in doing so, she had found a deeper peace, a connection to something larger than herself. The air, which had been so hollow for weeks, now seemed to carry a fresh, hopeful scent of wet earth and growing things. The whispering woods seemed to sigh contentedly, their gentle murmur a promise of the quiet dawn to come. The night who found his voice. The moon hung high in the inky sky, a silver disk casting long, ethereal shadows across the courtyard of the ancient monastery of St. Elias. Within the stone walls, a profound silence reigned, broken only by the gentle chirping of crickets and the soft rustling of leaves in the cloistered garden. In a small chamber overlooking the courtyard, Sir Talon rested. He was known throughout the surrounding lands as the Silent Knight, a formidable warrior who had never uttered a single word. His silence was not due to any physical ailment, but a vow he had taken many years ago, a vow tied to a tragedy he rarely spoke of, and never with words. His days at the monastery had a simple, meditative rhythm, a rhythm that he both found solace in and used as a form of silent penance. Each morning, he would rise with the first bell, his large, imposing frame moving with a quiet grace through the monastery's cold stone corridors. He would attend the morning prayers in the quiet chapel, his lips sealed, his mind focused not on the chants but on the silent, heavy weight in his chest. After prayers, he would go to the small monastery forge. The monks did not question his presence there, and he spent hours working the cold metal with a silent, focused intensity. The clang of his hammer on the anvil, a lone rhythm in the monastery's profound quiet, was his only voice. He would mend a broken gate, sharpen a plow blade, or simply work on a piece of iron for the sheer, quiet pleasure of it. The heat of the fire, the sparks that danced and died, and the feel of the cool, heavy metal in his hands were his companions. They were honest things, simple things, that did not demand a word from him. For 5 years, he had lived this way. The weight of his past was a physical burden, heavy and constant. He had been a great commander once, renowned for his courage and his brilliant tactics on the battlefield. But a great battle had gone wrong, a battle where a small, careless miscalculation had led to a terrible ambush. Talon had seen his men fall around him, and he had seen his young squire, a boy no older than 16, fall trying to protect him. The boy's name was Leo, and his face, filled with loyalty and a quiet admiration for his commander, was etched into Kalen's mind. In the chaotic retreat, Kalen had been forced to leave the boy behind. He felt the boy's death was his own failing, a mistake that had cost a life that was far too young to be lost. The weight of his guilt had become a physical burden, so heavy that he felt his own voice was unworthy of speech. He had returned from that battle, laid down his speaking sword, and taken up his vow of silence. The silence had become his prison, his self-imposed sentence for a crime he felt he could never atone for. He often found himself sitting by the window in his chamber at night, looking out at the star-filled sky. He would think of Leo, and he would imagine the stars were the souls of the brave men he had lost. But the thought brought him no peace, only a quiet, deep sadness. The monastery and its peaceful routines were a balm, but they could not heal the wound in his heart. He was a man of great power and strength, yet he was utterly powerless against his own grief. Tonight, however, a different kind of quiet filled the air. A palpable sense of anticipation seemed to hang heavy, a feeling that something unusual was about to occur. The moon, so often a calm presence, seemed to shimmer with an unusual energy. Talon felt it too, a subtle stirring beneath the surface of his usual calm. He had been a man of action for so long that this feeling of waiting, of a coming event, was a familiar one, though he couldn't have said why. As the night deepened, a faint melody drifted through the open window of Kalen's chamber. It was unlike any music he had ever heard before, ethereal and haunting, filled with a sorrow that resonated deep within his heart, yet also carrying a glimmer of hope, like starlight on a dark sea. The notes were like droplets of pure moonlight, falling and shimmering and pooling into a beautiful, heartbreaking song. He rose from his bed and moved to the window, peering out into the moonlit courtyard. He could see no one there. The melody seemed to emanate from the old chapel, its stone walls bathed in silver light. It was a melody that seemed to know his secrets, to understand his grief without a single word. Drawn by the mysterious music, Kalen made his way silently down to the chapel. The heavy oak doors were slightly ajar, and the ethereal music flowed out, beckoning him inside. The very air around him felt different, filled with a soft, pulsing light that seemed to come from the music itself. He felt a deep sense of reverence as he entered the sacred space. The interior of the chapel was bathed in the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the stained glass windows. In the center of the chancel, bathed in the celestial light, sat a young woman. Her eyes were closed, and her slender fingers danced across the strings of a harp unlike any Kalen had ever seen. The harp seemed to shimmer with an inner light, its frame crafted from a dark, smooth wood that appeared to be inlaid with tiny stars, like a miniature galaxy. The music it produced was otherworldly, weaving tales of sorrow and joy, loss and longing, darkness and light. Kalen felt the stories unfold in the music as if they were being whispered directly into his soul. He saw images in his mind's eye, a great darkness that had once covered the world, and of the first star singers who had played their harps to bring light back to the lands. The song told him that sorrow was not a weakness, but a well of deep feeling that could be transformed into something beautiful. Kalen stood silently in the doorway, captivated by the sight and the sound. He felt a strange sense of recognition, as if he had heard this melody before in a dream, or perhaps in the deepest recesses of his memory. He felt a tear track down his cheek, the first he had shed in years. As the music softened to a gentle lull, the young woman's eyes fluttered open. They were the color of the twilight sky, and they seemed to hold an ancient wisdom. She looked directly at Kalen, and a soft smile touched her lips. "Welcome, silent night," she said, her voice as melodious as the harp she played. "I have been expecting you. My name is Lyra, and this harp carries the songs of the stars. It sings of forgotten tales, of the joys and sorrows of those who have walked this earth before us. It carries the wisdom of the universe, and it speaks to the hearts of those who need to listen." Kalen was surprised that she knew him, and even more surprised that she spoke to him as if his silence were no impediment. He stepped further into the chapel, his gaze fixed on the star-touched harp. "I have traveled for many years," Lyra continued, following the light of the stars to where a great silence has taken root. "The stars have guided me here, to you, Sir Kalen, for you are the one they have chosen to receive their song. They see the goodness in your heart, but also the deep sorrow that has become your shadow." Lyra's words resonated deeply within Kalen's soul. He had carried his sorrow in silence for so long, the weight of it a constant burden. But beneath the grief, there was indeed a flicker of hope, a yearning for peace and perhaps even healing. Lyra began to play again, the music now softer, more intimate. It seemed to weave around Kalen, reaching into the hidden corners of his heart. She sang of a journey the stars had taken, long ago, when they had left their home to bring their light to a world in darkness. She spoke of the courage it had taken to leave the comfort of their home, of the loneliness of their long journey, and of the joy they felt when their light finally reached the dark world. It was a story of hope, of sacrifice, and of the enduring power of light against darkness. As she played, Kalen felt his own journey being reflected in the music. The music flowed through his memories, touching them with a soft, gentle light. He saw himself as a boy, full of energy and hope, learning to wield a sword. He saw the pride he felt when he was knighted, the unwavering loyalty of his men. The music flowed over the battlefield, not with the crash of swords and the roar of men, but with a sorrowful hum. And then it flowed over the image of Leo, not with a cry of grief, but with a peaceful, loving melody. It seemed to whisper to him that Leo's spirit was at peace, that he had lived a life of honor, and that his death, while tragic, was not Kalen's fault. It was simply a part of the greater story, a sad note in a beautiful song. He felt emotions he had long suppressed begin to surface, the pain of losing his young squire, the regret of that fateful day, but also a sense of forgiveness, both for himself and for others. He felt the heavy weight on his shoulders begin to lift, slowly at first, then all at once. The music told him it was not his fault, that some things are beyond a single person's control. It told him that the boy he lost was now a star himself, and that his memory was a part of the greater song. Lyra continued to play, and the music now spoke of a new chapter. It spoke of a knight who, though silent, could be a protector of a different kind. It was a song of quiet strength, of a man who could lead not with a loud voice, but with a calm, steadfast spirit. The music told him that his silence, which he had seen as his greatest punishment, could in fact be his greatest strength. It gave him the ability to listen more deeply, to observe more keenly, and to feel more fully. The stars, she said, saw his new path. Talon listened, his eyes never leaving Lyra and her magical harp. He felt a warmth spreading through him, a lightness he had not experienced in years. The music seemed to soothe the wounds of his past, to offer a glimmer of a future where his silence might not be a burden, but a part of who he was, a testament to the depths of his feeling. He saw in his mind's eye not the darkness of the past, but a bright new day filled with hope and the quiet, comforting presence of the star song. He felt tears of release, of peace, silently streaming down his face. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the stained glass windows, Lyra's music softened again, fading into a gentle, peaceful hum. She smiled at Talon, her eyes filled with a knowing kindness. "The stars have sung their song for you, silent night," she said softly. "The silence you tarry holds great strength, but it does not need to be a prison. It can be a testament to your depth, a quiet strength that carries you through the world. Listen to the whispers of your heart, and know that healing comes in many forms." Lyra rose, the star-touched harp seeming to dim slightly as she moved. She thanked Brother Thomas, who had quietly entered the chapel during her playing, for the monastery's hospitality. Then, with a final, gentle nod to Talon, she departed, the ethereal glow of the harp fading as she disappeared into the morning mist. Talon stood in the silent chapel, the first rays of sunlight painting the stained glass in vibrant hues. The air still seemed to hum with the echoes of the star-touched harp. He reached a hand to his throat, a place that had felt tight with unspoken words for so long. A deep breath filled his lungs, and for the first time in many years, a sense of quiet peace settled within him, a peace that resonated with the stillness of the monastery and the soft light of the dawn. He walked out into the courtyard, the sounds of the waking monastery now a gentle harmony to the song in his heart. He saw a small bird building a nest in the rafters of the abbey, its diligent work a quiet, simple act of life. He saw Brother Thomas working in the small garden, his hands tenderly tending to the new shoots of spring. Talon felt a quiet, powerful urge to help. He went to the garden shed, took up a spade, and began to work the earth. The feel of the cool, damp soil in his hands felt good. It felt like a beginning. The silence remained, but it no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a space for reflection, for healing, and for listening to the quiet whispers of his own heart, guided by the songs of the stars. He knew his journey was far from over, but he also knew that he was no longer alone. He had found his voice, not in words, but in the quiet, peaceful strength of his soul.